A Regular Customer, written by Tim Watson, performed by Jean Wilson. I've worked at Eddy's kitchen for years, ever since my husband left me. It's a nice little place, the job's steady, and the tips aren't bad either. Our diner's on the outskirts of town, just off the main road, so we're usually pretty busy in the afternoons. We've oftentimes got people from all over in our diner, people through to the city, people heading across the country to the beach, all of them with a good story or a bit of news from somewhere fancy. I'm a bit of a people person, you see, always being told that I talk too much, but you gotta make everyone feel welcome in our little diner. That's how you get your tips as well. It all happened last Wednesday. The day had started well, had a lovely little talk with a cute guy on his way to the tracks, off to see some bike show or something. I was standing by my till singing to myself when Joe walked in. Joe was one of our regulars, poor soul. He used to work in the old factory, but he got laid off a few months ago when the business struggled and he had a hard time picking himself up. He only lived 10 minutes away, so would always come in for breakfast on his way out of town. Always had a big plate of waffles and as much coffee as we could give him before he went. And I'd always be sure to ask the kitchen for some extra syrup for him as well. But that day, he was different. He looked all rugged, like he'd been hiking all night, and he had a kind of cold air around him. He just sat in the stool by the counter looking straight ahead of himself, staring sort of blankly at the back wall. I grabbed the coffee jug and walked over to him as usual. I poured him a cup and passed it over to him. He looked at the cup on the counter and said, "Thanks," in a kind of slow and cold tone. I asked him if he wanted as usual today, and he just sort of sat there and did nothing. I asked him if something was wrong, and he looked up at me. That's when I saw it. You see, he has these piercing blue eyes that always turn my heart to butter when I see them, but when he looked at me then, his eyes were all dark, like someone had switched a light off in his head. He sat there looking at me for a moment, and then he told me in this kind of heavy voice, "I shot Dottie." I didn't know what to do. I just sort of stood there in shock. I think that's when I dropped the coffee jug and it shattered all over the floor. I was looking at Joe as he took a sip from his cup. He then slowly pulled out his wallet and emptied his money onto the counter. "That'll pay for the jug, won't it?" he said. I hadn't quite come to my senses yet, so I just sort of nodded at him. I just couldn't believe that gentle old Joe had shot his wife. I pulled myself together, but I was still kind of stuttering as I spoke. You shot Dottie?" I said, and he just nodded. "Is she?" I couldn't even bring myself to ask, and he just nodded again, taking another sip from his coffee. "The cops are coming. I just wanted to come back again before His voice just kind of stopped, like he didn't want to say what was next. In the distance, I could hear some sirens getting louder. After a couple of minutes, the lights started to flash outside the diner, and the other people in the room started asking questions. Joe then took off his wedding ring and put it on the table by the side of the cup. He then started to get ready to leave to go outside. Why? I don't even know why I asked. I don't think I wanted the answer. It just kind of came out. He just looked at me with a dark, kind of sad look. "I just couldn't let her down anymore," he said, taking a final sip from his coffee. "Thanks, Jeannie," he said as he calmly stood up and walked out of the doors. I don't know what happened next. I just sort of collapsed in tears. I just can't believe he did that, you know? He seemed like a nice guy. But I guess you never really know what's going on in someone's head, do you?